Back in 2010, like right after we started our YouTube channel, we had a series of interviews with our fellow nomads called Ramblings. And we did about 30 episodes of that, and you can go find that in a playlist on our channel. Some really cool people to meet there. And one of the very last interviews that we filmed was in 2015 when we encountered some new-to-the-road nomads, Marc and Julie Bennett, known as RV Love, and they have a YouTube channel, the RV Love TV channel. And we interviewed them, but I kind of got lazy and never got around to producing their interview. Well, last month they were visiting us here on the boat in Florida, and we showed them their old interview footage and got an update from them, as well as their new book, Living the RV Life. So I'm going back to this video is 4 years old when we interviewed them, and then you can go and see how much their own RV journey has changed over the years. It's kind of really fun to go do this one. And this evening they're coming back over to the boat to spend the day with us, and at 7 p.m. Today's February 11th, we are going to do a live Q&A video broadcast with them. So if you have questions for them or us or about our unique journeys on the road, come and hang out with us this evening at 7 p.m. Or if you're watching this later, go catch the archive of the live chat too later if you want to learn more about them. And of course, go over to their YouTube channel too. So enjoy. This one's a hoot.
So what do you said something about your pants?
Well, what's so funny is this was filmed in February of 2015, and you can't see my pants in this. And that's the first time I ever used my iron in the RV was to iron my linen pants for this interview because we were so excited and nervous to be interviewed by Chris and Sheree of Technomadian.
Let's let you watch it, and then I'd love to do a little update on it, and then we'll get this published.
Cool.
Sure, that'd be great. Cool.
Hello, it's Marc and Julie, RV Love. We've been on the road since May of 2014, so we're pretty newbies to this. Only been about 7 or 8 months so far. So.
Yeah. Well, back in 2011, we went down to the Colorado sand dunes to get some of the darker colored sand for our sand ceremony for our wedding. And on the way back, we stopped at a pizza restaurant at Colorado Springs and got chatting to a couple sitting at the table next to us. And they had originally lived in Florida and had a big house, and when everything tanked in the last global economic crisis, they realized they had this big house that was costing them a lot of money and weren't using most of the pool and everything, so they decided to sell it and hit the road in an RV. So we got to learn a lot about their story and experience, and it was just really inspiring because they were obviously having such a great time doing it. And we just sparked a conversation on the way home that, you know, maybe that's something we'll do one day, and then probably forgot about it for the next few years while we got on with life.
Yeah.
Until
then a few years later, we're looking at vision boarding and think about what we want to do someday, and again with that someday comment, and we wanted to do some RV travel around the United States sometime. And then we started looking at the pictures of them and started realizing it's really not that expensive. And once we started realizing that it's more financially doable sooner, then we started putting together the other pieces, the technology piece and how to be able to work, and we just started getting yes after yes after yes on that this is very doable. And because I still have a regular 9-to-5 type job where I have to be expected to be at my desk all day long to be able to be contactable. And here we are 7 weeks later, and most people at the company, 7 months later, yeah.
7 months.
And,
it feels like 7 weeks.
Most people at the company don't even know. So it's been really seamless, and it's fantastic. Love it. So how do we make a living on the road? I'm an operations project manager for a nutritional supplement company, and basically I just help the company run smoother. I am on conference calls a good part of the day with the executive team and keeping things organized because it's a younger company, and so I need high bandwidth internet. But that's ours. My job is currently the primary income, but we're looking to expand on that. So
definitely. So my income, because I'm self-employed, and I was working for a company in a marketing role in Denver back in 2013 or 2014. I'm losing track of the time. 2000 whenever. And when the company closed the office and I was looking for another job, I realized, well, we both realized Marc's working remotely now, maybe rather than look for another job that's going to tie me down to being, having to go into the city and commute every day, maybe I go back to what I used to do, which was, run my own business again. So I've just been gradually building that up again. I'm a writer and a marketer and have been for 20 plus years, and I also do some lifestyle coaching with clients. But what I've been mostly focusing on the last year is actually trading with the financial markets, technical analysis trading. So that's something that I've always really wanted to do, but wasn't really in a position to focus a lot of time on. But now with Marc's primary income source being that, it gives me a chance to dabble in the financial markets, which I love, and also to have my creative outlet with the blog and the writing and the content. So I'm kind of really happy having my best of both worlds with that.
Yeah. Well, so which RV did we choose? We chose 2012 Tiffin Open Road, 35 QBA. It's a bunkhouse for what a lot of people.
And a gas coach.
And a gas coach. We found that we wanted a newer coach, and we weren't able to buy a newer diesel because they were almost double the price. And with our logic on how we use the coach, we travel fairly slowly. In fact, we like to stay at least a week, often 2 and 3 weeks at a time. And so we spend 100, 200 hours in the coach for every few hours that we drive it. And so as though a diesel coach drives beautifully, it wasn't as big a factor for us. But we have it's about a 36-foot long, and interestingly, our townhome that we moved out of was 14 feet wide and 35 feet long, and our coach is 35 feet long, and with the slides out is almost 12 feet wide. So it's almost the same size
we
as
had
one
3
floor of our
levels in the
townhome. Yeah, so that's an adjustment, but it feels big because we have all the windows and we have the big outdoor space now. But we love our coach, and we wanted a newer one because when we started researching, we had to finance the coach, and when we started looking at how much the monthly payment would be on this newer gas coach or a similar older coach that a diesel, that our monthly payment was actually the same. And so we like a lot of the newer technology in the coach, like it has built-in inverters and has built-in LED lights and a lot of the efficiencies of that. And we definitely wanted to buy used because we like the idea of having someone else do the initial break-in, because we've heard every coach, whether it's $1 million coach or a $50,000 coach, always has a shakedown where there's stuff that you have to work through as a first owner. So
definitely, that was advice we kept hearing over and over and over again. We almost bought a new Winnebago, and then about 3 months before we said nope, we're buying used, and we're buying a Tiffin, and we haven't looked back. We've been super happy with our decision. I mean, Marc had his criteria for what he wanted, and a lot of that was storage capacity in the basement. That was a big one for you. For me, obviously having enough storage space in the kitchen, and actually having a flush countertop with the sink covers and the cover over the top of the stove. I just noticed that even in the 1 year earlier than our coach, there was a raised stove, and I'm fairly short, so it's just ergonomically really difficult and uncomfortable to do that. So I love having that extra flat counter space that we get with that model. So that's really high value for me.
Yeah. We did research extensively when we were deciding what to buy. We were, Julie not so much, but I was even considering trucks versus trailers, and trucks and trailers versus coach and towed, and we researched that. Well, I researched that a lot, and part of the reason we decided to go with a coach and a towed is because we love to drive, and we love to drive fun, sporty cars, and so we have a Mini Cooper convertible, and you can't tow a trailer with that, and it's really awkward to pull a trailer and a towed. So we didn't want to go do our exploring in a big truck. So
yeah,
we love the idea of having a motor coach and a Mini so that we can, when we drive, drop the top and go drive Highway 1 or something fun. So.
And even though we've already driven from Colorado all the way across to California, up through Oregon, Washington, back all the way down to Southern California, now we're right here on the border of California and Arizona. Despite all of those miles, we've actually done more miles in the Mini. And even though the fuel economy on the coach isn't great, the Mini is, so it really offsets it quite a lot. So we look at our fuel economy consumption as an overall picture, not just what we get on the coach, because as Marc said, we do travel pretty slow, and sometimes there'll be a month maybe we'll drive if 100 miles, if that. I think in the coach.
Yeah. Well, with the coach, another reason we love this coach is because with the bunkhouse, it allowed us space that would be easily convertible into an office, and so after we brought it home, I went in and took out the upper bunk and installed an office, a permanent office that would not have to get set up and torn down, and also allows me at the end of the day to pull curtains on it and just close it away. It's no longer part of the workspace, of the living space of the home. So that's really a nice feature for me because I have really high work-life balance, and I like to, when I'm at work, I'm very focused, but when I'm done with work, it's done. And so I love having an office that I can close off and it's done for the day. And it works beautifully. I have excellent ergonomics, which if any of you 20-somethings are watching this video, you might not care so much about, but once you get on this side of 40, actually for me, I have spina bifida, so since I was a little young, ergonomics has always been important for me. So I really value having quality ergonomics and a nice space to call work and a nice place to call home. So,
Go and talk about your setup, Julie, too.
Yeah.
So my workspace is situated in the front area of the coach, in the passenger cabin area, in the cockpit, as we call it. And I actually have a Mac desktop. I do have a laptop as well, but I tend to use the desktop the most. It's a newer, more powerful computer. And it's got a bigger screen for photo and video editing. So at the front passenger part of the coach, it's got a little slide out. It's called a laptop tray, but I use it as a keyboard tray for my keyboard and mouse, my wireless keyboard and mouse. And then Mark's built a little shelf that goes along the back, that over the top of that the Mac sits on the screen, the monitor. And that works fantastically, and that's where we do all of the charging of all of the devices up the front, and it's right next to the Wilson booster, so I can just keep an eye on all of that stuff, and it works really well. My ergonomics are better than I had at home in our townhome. What with that nice, comfortable leather adjustable chair, and then there's a little stool, again more of a foot support stool that is also a storage area underneath my feet. So I love my new office space, and I've got a great, big, expansive view.
She's got the view. Yeah.
I've got the view. Mike's got a little window out the side of the bunkhouse.
He's got the executive corner office.
I have the executive
there,
corner office. Well, I do all the finances, so therefore I'm the boss.
Yeah, I suppose so. For me, the biggest question and the biggest thing we wanted to resolve was technology, because I'm wanting to make sure that I was going to be able to be seamless and staying connected, because my work, that's an expectation, and so that was the biggest question, and I was actually very excited that it was very quickly answered, and thank you Technomadia for that, because that was a really quick way to get a lot of confidence in the ability to have staying connected. So.
Yeah, we first started looking at satellite, thinking that was the answer, and surprisingly a lot of people do, but very quickly by reading your ebook we learned that forget about that, and narrowed it down to what our needs were, and so far it's been working fantastically. It's been working really well. We've had very little connectivity issues, and if there are a couple of areas where connectivity is not great, we just move, or we do a lot of research before we even go there.
We generally research before we go somewhere, but that's the beauty of it, right? If you don't like an area for whatever reason, connectivity or the weather, our house has wheels. You just, those little round things on the bottom, you just go.
So when you first announced to your close friends and family what you were up to, what was their reaction?
You can answer this one.
That's a fun question. When we first told people that we were going to do this, it was actually fun because we had people run the gamut. We had people say, "Oh my gosh, that's so inspiring, that's great," or "That's so courageous, that's wonderful," and we had other people, some from family that were just like, "Are you crazy? What are you thinking?" And
you don't do that until you're retired.
You don't do that until you're retired. But we definitely had that run the gamut. But it was fun because when you talk, my grandmother was 97, and when she heard about it, she just goes, "You go out there and do it!" Just smacks me on the arm and thinks that's great. And that's kind of the message I think of. And I love the idea that some people are inspired by it, because that's one of the big things that our goal is to help inspire other people to think outside the box and live a different life than what's traditional. I mean, we lived in a regular house and had a regular job. We both drove to work and we had that. And that's just... the thought of going back to that now is crazy. I can't imagine going back to that at this point. It's I feel like I want to move in a few weeks. So, but what else would you say about that?
Well, my dad, he and his wife travel Australia in their they call it a caravan here in the US. We call it a travel trailer. But basically they tow that behind their Land Cruiser. And so they already travel a lot. And they thought it was all great and were really supportive of it. And then just when we'd sold our townhome, Dad sent me a long considered email, very, very respectful, nice email, pointing out all of his concerns. And so I spent a bit of time, because I know he was just coming from a place of fatherly concern, and understandably so, but I took a lot of time to really explain what we were doing, how we were doing it, why we were doing it. Really went into quite a lot of detail about the financials of it, because I know that's a big concern for a lot of people.
Let's go ahead and talk about the style of camping that you're doing. So describe how.
I feel like I want to feel more balanced.
Okay.
I'm Libra and I like balance. So.
Well, we're definitely mostly campground campers, and the reason for that is because we are working full time, and Mark in particular having that commitment to being at work between certain hours and days, a little less flexibility. We like to have the power connection of a campground. We like to have water, full hookups. Mm-hmm. So this is our first week actually dry camping out on our own, literally in the middle of nowhere. And but it's going, so far it's going really well. So we're in day 2, but I think for the most part I would say 90% of our camping will be in campgrounds. But I like a bit of clamping. I like nice things. I like drinking out of my nice wine glasses and having we eat off real plates and that kind of thing. Yeah,
and we like it, but and we do. I am really loving the boondocking thing. It's wonderful and peaceful and tranquil, and the movie The Castle. The Serenity. But
it's an Aussie movie.
It's an Aussie movie. But we definitely love and appreciate the idea of this boondocking, and it's wonderful with the coaches. It's pretty easy to do, let's have to say. But yeah, most of the time we're going to be hooked up. And part of that too is because Julie's high extrovert, and she loves having people around to have community, and so that's another advantage of having a Thousand Trails membership or another campground membership, is that you're around other people and you have interactions, and then you can have people over for happy hour or whatever. And so that's probably another reason why that campground is more common for us. Though, ironically, this is our first week boondocking, and then it's very serendipitously our very closest neighbor is someone that we know from online, and that was.
Now we know you in person, Chris and Cherie. Thanks for coming to say hi.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
Yeah, but that was definitely one of my concerns when we started, was the sense of community. That was a big, once we ironed out the technology piece, my next thing was, well, how do we go about making friends and meeting new people, and having that conversations beyond weather chat, real conversations. But the interesting thing is, I think a lot of the time we have sometimes more real deep conversations with people in travels, because people have more time, people are more relaxed, people are more laid back, more present, often more available, and not as caught up in the everyday busyness of life and routine, and commutes to work and back and crazy schedules. And it's like people have kind of stepped out of that into a whole different world, and it's totally doable.
Totally, yeah. And part of that retired. Part of that's because a lot of the people we meet are retired, but we also meet families who have their kids and they do homeschooling and they do that whole thing. And then we are also starting to meet more and more people who are like us, younger, still working, and
location independent professionals.
Location independent professionals. Yeah, we meet a number of those now, and that's been really fun to meet more people that are like-minded and like lifestyle. So.
If someone was coming to you to say, I want to do this, what would be the inspiring pep talk you'd give them?
Well, I think one thing for me is, I think it's very easy for people to look at something in one way and say, well, I can't do it because of this reason. But if you take a step back and you're more creative in your view of it, you may find that you can repurpose a lot of things in your life without it costing you any more than it currently is. And that's exactly what we did. In fact, we sold 2 cars and paid those payments off, and bought a car for cash, a cheaper car, and the coach payment is less than those 2 cars were. That's one great example. But I would just say, just think about what's really important to you in your life. What are your values? How do you want to spend your days? How do you want to spend your life? Because every day, every moment is your life, and you're creating it as you go. It is not something that is out there. It's right here, right now. We never know how many tomorrows we're going to have left.
Yeah, we've seen lots of examples of that. And, you know, the other side of it too is, what do you have to lose? I mean, if you do like we did and you jump into it and you decide it's not for you, then go back. But if you do it and you love it like us, then fantastic. So that's what we'd wish for you. Only been about 7-8 months so far.
Newbies. Look at them now, jaded veterans.
Jaded veterans.
All right. So you guys just watched your interview from 4 years ago. Nothing's changed since then, right?
There's been a lot
like
that's
everything.
changed. Yeah, a lot that's changed. But it was so fun to look at that and think back to that day that we all met out in the middle of the desert, in the middle of nowhere. And to see how much we've aged.
I know, I looked at it going, God, we looked so young then, but what do they say? Bit more age, bit more wisdom.
Yeah.
Hope so.
We're about to have a cat cameo, I think.
It's all right.
She could see the birds. Kiki,
Okay. So
look
some
at
of
the
your
camera. hon.
biggest changes. You're no longer like a working stiff.
Well, I actually work more hours than I did before, but it's different because we're in our own control of our own environment and our own work schedule. But yeah, I no longer work for the man, I guess. You know, I no longer have a 9-to-5 job, and which also changed a lot we do with our motorhome, because we originally bought that first motorhome very intentionally because it had a separate workspace I could block off, where now we work together, and so we have a floor plan that's much more conducive to working together.
And you have a cat now, too.
And we have a cat now, too.
We have a cat. And so we changed to a 1999 diesel Class A motorhome. It's a country coach that we bought in March of this year. Spoiler alert, I don't know when this video is going live, but we've already done a full remodel on it that we'll be starting to share in January 2019. So we're excited to share that with everyone. But that's been a fun process. Not something we would have considered doing when we were newbies, because that was a lot of work and time. We just wanted to hit the road and travel. But now we were ready for it, a lot more experienced, and yeah, we love it.
Yeah. Has your style of RVing changed? Because you were very RV park focused back then. Is that still the case?
We were very RV park focused. Our first, I mean, that was 7 months in. We were almost exclusively in RV parks back then.
That was our first boondocking experience ever. So
Yeah.
we were very green.
Yeah, so, but we now do boondock more, but we still probably 75% in parks.
Yeah.
But maybe less. I think the year coming will be higher percentage boondocking, but we're still, I'd say, more often than not in the campground.
Yeah, another spoiler alert, we've actually installed lithium batteries and solar on our RV this year, so we'll definitely be doing more off-grid in 2019.
So how have your income sources changed since those days when...
Well, I mean, that's been the biggest change perhaps of all, is that the first few years on the road, I had my job as the primary income source, and then about 3 years in, it became too much to manage my job and then managing RV Love on top, and it was too much for Julie to manage, but there was so much intrinsic reward from knowing that we're helping people, making the road smoother for them. And so we shifted. I left my traditional job, and now we work for ourselves exclusively, and that's been a huge shift.
And I no longer do share trading because I was finding that was a little too volatile, and I was finding that it just wasn't as joyful for me as content creation around RV Love. So I'm always about just doing what is joyful, and so decided to get rid of that and the desktop computer. I don't have that anymore either. We're just 2 laptops now.
Yeah, just 2 laptops. And so then we built an online school to help people learn to RV, and we also, it's RV Success School, and we also wrote a book, and that's what just came out now, and that's our real legacy and our real prideful moment, is that we've created this book that we're really proud of, and it's been super well received. And that's what's really funny to see that video from so long ago, is to see how we were the newbies, and we even say it on the video, and now we are people who are looked to as people to help educate newbies, and it's a real shift, and it's kind of fun to see.
So Chris and Cherie of Technomadia was actually the first resource, was their ebook, their mobile internet handbook that we bought, that answered the question of can we get connectivity and work from the road. And so it was actually a big moment for us to meet them out in the desert, because we looked up to them so much. We still do, but now it's we're peers and we're friends, and we're delighted that they're in our book as well in chapter 7 on working from the road. It's called Living the RV Life: Your Ultimate Guide to Life on the Road.
it's that has been our labour of love this year, and we're really excited to have that out there for everyone to learn from and be inspired by as they hit the road.
That's so awesome.
Don't pack an iron in the RV, you're just really not ever going to use it.
But, yeah, I don't even remember noticing your pants then, so that's...
They're lovely and ironed, kind of looking. That is so funny. We look